The lawyer's office smelled like old leather and disappointment. I sat there watching my stepmother Helena count the thick stack of $100 bills with her perfectly manicured nails while I stared at the dusty cardboard box in front of me. 24 cheap white candles. That's what my father left me. $24 store candles that looked like they'd been sitting in someone's garage sale reject pile for the past decade. "Well, Sophie," Helena said, not even trying to hide her smirk as she tucked the cash into her designer purse. "I guess your father knew exactly what each of us deserved." The lawyer cleared his throat uncomfortably, but said nothing. What was there to say? The will was clear. Helena got $200,000 in cash. Her daughter, my stepsister Brittany, got the vacation home in Aspen. And me? His biological daughter, the one who'd spent every summer of her childhood in his workshop, learning to carve wood and fix engines while he hummed old jazz songs? I got a box of candles. I picked up the box, feeling its insignificant weight in my arms. The candles rattled inside like bones. My throat burned with unshed tears, but I wouldn't give Helena the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Not here, not ever again. "Thank you," I said to the lawyer, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. "I'll see myself out." As I walked past Helena, she stage whispered to Brittany, "I told you she'd end up with nothing. Some people are just born to be forgotten." If you're watching this and you've ever felt like the universe was playing some cruel joke on you, like everyone else got the golden ticket while you got the consolation prize, then please, stay with me. Because sometimes the most worthless-looking things hold the most incredible secrets. Sometimes what looks like an insult is actually a test. And sometimes, just sometimes, fathers know exactly what they're doing, even from beyond the grave. Like this video and share it with someone who needs to remember that appearances can be deceiving, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about value, about family, and about the man who raised me. My name isn't really important, but since you're here, listening to my story, you can call me Sophie, Sophie Martinez. I'm 23 now, but this happened 6 months ago, right after I graduated from community college with a degree in accounting that Helena loved to call adorable, in that way that made it sound like a participation trophy. I should probably tell you how I ended up in this situation, sitting in my beat-up Honda Civic in the parking lot of Patterson & Associates law firm, staring at a box of candles while my stepfamily drove away in Helena's new Mercedes, bought with my father's money. My mother died when I was 7. Lung cancer, even though she never smoked a day in her life. I remember the funeral, how my father held my hand so tight I thought he might break my tiny fingers, like if he let go, I might disappear too. For 3 years, it was just us, Dad and Sophie against the world. He taught me everything. How to change a tire, how to read a blueprint, how to tell when someone was lying by the way their left eye twitched. We'd spend weekends in his workshop, building birdhouses and picture frames, the sawdust dancing in the afternoon light like golden snow. Then Helena appeared. She was everything my mother wasn't. Tall where Mom was petite, loud where Mom was soft-spoken, artificial where Mom was genuine. She worked at the bank where Dad had his business accounts. One day she was processing his deposits. The next she was having dinner with us, her daughter Brittany in tow like a designer accessory. Brittany was 2 years older than me, with the kind of blonde hair that came from a bottle and the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. From day one, she made it clear that I was the interloper in what would become her family. Helena married my father when I was 11, and suddenly our cozy 2-bedroom house felt like enemy territory. "Sophie's room is so small," Brittany complained on their first night living with us. "Why does she get the one with the window facing the garden?" By the end of the week, I was moved to the converted attic space, a room that was boiling in summer and freezing in winter. Dad apologized, said it was just temporary, just until things settled. But things never settled. They just got worse. Helena had a gift for making me feel like a guest in my own home. She'd forget to set a place for me at dinner, then act shocked when I stood in the doorway with my backpack still on. She'd buy Brittany designer clothes for school and get me clearance rack items 2 sizes too big because you'll grow into them, dear. She'd plan family vacations during my school events, then wonder why I was so antisocial for not wanting to miss my science fair for a trip to Vegas. The worst part was how subtle it was. How she'd praise Brittany's mediocre grades while barely acknowledging my honor roll certificates. How she'd introduce Brittany as my beautiful daughter and me as Robert's girl from his first marriage. How she'd schedule her salon appointments during the exact time Dad and I used to work in his shop, then guilt him for choosing dusty old wood over supporting his wife. Slowly, I watched my father drift away from me like a boat with a cut anchor line. The workshop gathered dust. Our weekend projects became Brittany's shopping trips. Our father-daughter dinners became family affairs, where I sat silent while Helena dominated the conversation with gossip about her country club friends. But there were moments, brief, precious moments, when Dad would catch my eye across the dinner table and wink, or when he'd sneak into my attic room late at night to help me with my calculus homework, or when he'd leave little origami cranes made from newspaper on my dresser, just like he used to when Mom was sick and I couldn't sleep. "Never forget who you are, Soph," he told me once, after Helena had spent an entire dinner party telling her friends how Brittany was destined for Harvard while I was exploring my options at community college. Sometimes the most valuable things don't shine. They glow, but only for the people who know how to look. I didn't understand what he meant then. I thought it was just another one of his cryptic dadisms, like measure twice, cut once, or the early bird might get the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese. The last time I really talked to him was 3 weeks before his heart attack. I'd come home from my part-time job at the bookstore to find him in the garage, not in his dusty workshop, but sitting in his car with the engine off, just staring at something in his hands. "Dad?" I'd knocked on the window. "You okay?" He'd startled, quickly shoving whatever he was holding into his jacket pocket. "Sophie! Yes, just thinking." "About what?" He'd looked at me then with such intensity that I'd taken a step back. "About legacies, about what we leave behind, about making sure the right things go to the right people." "Dad, you're scaring me. Are you sick?" No. He'd gotten out of the car, pulled me into one of his rare hugs. He smelled like sawdust and Old Spice, like home used to smell before Helena's expensive perfumes took over. "I'm just making sure everything is in order. You know me, always planning ahead." "Is this about your will?" I'd pulled back to look at him. "Dad, you're 58. You've got decades left." "Of course I do," he'd said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just promise me something, Soph. When the time comes, whatever happens, whatever it looks like, trust me, and remember what I taught you about value." "Dad, promise me." "I promise," I'd said, confused and a little frightened by his intensity. 3 weeks later, he was dead. The heart attack happened at his office. Quick, the doctors said, painless. Helena had cried beautifully at the funeral, her mascara never running, her black dress impeccable. Brittany had stood beside her, the picture of elegant grief, and I had stood apart, in my old black dress that was now too short, feeling like an orphan in every sense of the word. The will reading was scheduled for exactly 1 month after the funeral. Helena had spent that month redecorating the house, removing all traces of my father's presence with frightening efficiency. His workshop tools were sold, his clothes donated, his coffee mug, the one I'd made him in 3rd grade art class with "World's Best Dad" painted in crooked letters, disappeared one day while I was at work. "We need to move forward," Helena had said when I'd confronted her about the mug. "Dwelling on the past isn't healthy, Sophie." But she'd seemed pretty happy to dwell on the past when it came to inheriting his money, which brings me back to the parking lot, to the box of candles, to the moment when I thought my father had forgotten me entirely. I drove home in a daze, the box of candles on my passenger seat like the world's most pathetic consolation prize. Every red light was an opportunity for the tears to threaten again. Every happy family in the car next to me was a reminder of what I'd lost. Twice. When I pulled into the driveway, Helena's Mercedes was already there, along with 3 other cars I recognized as belonging to her country club friends. Through the window, I could see them toasting with champagne, celebrating her windfall. My father's death had become her lottery win. I couldn't go in there. I couldn't sit in what used to be my home and watch them celebrate while I held my box of dollar store candles. Instead, I drove to the only place that still felt like mine, Marcy's apartment. Marcy Chen had been my best friend since middle school, back when having a friend meant someone who'd share their fruit snacks with you and not judge you for reading fantasy novels at lunch instead of gossiping about boys. She was the only person who'd ever stood up to Brittany, the time she'd accidentally spilled red paint all over my history project the day before it was due. "She did what?" Marcy practically shrieked when I told her about the will, nearly dropping the wine bottle she was opening. 24 candles? That's it? Sophie, that's insane. That's not even legal, is it? Apparently it is, I said, slumping onto her couch. He was of sound mind. The will was properly witnessed. He specifically stated that this box of candles was my inheritance, and that it should not be sold, traded, or given away for at least 1 year. 1 year? Marcy handed me a very full glass of wine. Why 1 year? I have no idea. The whole thing is bizarre. It's like he wanted to hurt me one last time, you know? Like Helena finally won, even from beyond the grave. That doesn't sound like your dad, though, Marcy said, frowning. Remember when he helped us build that rocket for the science fair? He spent 3 weekends perfecting the trajectory calculations with us. That's not a man who does things without thinking them through. Maybe Helena influenced him. Maybe she convinced him I wasn't really his daughter. Maybe... Stop! Marcy held up her hand. Show me these candles. I retrieved the box from my car and set it on her coffee table. We opened it together, revealing 24 white candles, each about 6 inches tall and 2 inches in diameter. They were wrapped in clear cellophane, the kind you'd buy in bulk for emergency power outages. Nothing special about them at all, except for one thing: they were surprisingly heavy. "These are really heavy for cheap candles," Marcy said, picking one up. "And look, there's something written on the bottom of each one." I grabbed one and flipped it over. In tiny, neat handwriting, my father's handwriting, was a single word: patience. We checked each candle. They all had different words: trust, value, remember, workshop, daughter, truth, hidden, light, love, forever, yours, always, watching, waiting, understanding, revelation, time, gift, legacy, heart, home, real, gold. "This is like a message," Marcy said, arranging the candles on her floor, trying different combinations. "Maybe it's a code?" We spent 3 hours arranging and rearranging those candles, trying to make sense of the words. Daughter, always yours. Truth hidden, waiting time. Remember, workshop, legacy. Nothing seemed quite right, and eventually, exhaustion won. I crashed on Marcy's couch, the candles still scattered across her living room floor like a puzzle I was too tired to solve. That night, I dreamed about my father. We were in his workshop, and he was teaching me to sandwood, showing me how to go with the grain, not against it. "The beauty is already there," he said in the dream. "Sometimes you just have to remove what's covering it up." When I woke up, Marcy was already gone to her job at the hospital. She was a nurse, working 12-hour shifts that would make most people cry. She'd left me a note. "Stay as long as you need. There's leftover Chinese in the fridge. Don't give up on the candles. Your dad loved puzzles, remember?" M. I spent the morning staring at those 24 candles, trying to find the pattern, the message, the reason. Why candles? Why 24? Why these specific words? The only thing I knew for certain was that my father had written on them himself, which meant he'd planned this. But planned what? By noon, frustration had transformed into anger. I grabbed one of the candles, the one labeled Truth, and stormed into Marcy's kitchen. If my father wanted to leave me candles, then fine. I'd use them as intended. I'd burn every last one of them and try to forget this whole humiliating experience. I found Marcy's lighter in her junk drawer and lit the candle, setting it on a plate on her kitchen counter. The wick caught easily, the flame dancing in the afternoon light streaming through the window. I watched it burn, feeling petty and vindicated and heartbroken all at once. "This is what I think of your candles, Dad," I said to the empty apartment. "This is what I think of being forgotten." The wax began to melt, pooling around the base of the candle. It was oddly satisfying, watching something disappear. Maybe I'd burn all 24 right now, have a little ceremony of letting go. Helena could have her money, Brittany could have her vacation home, and I could have closure. But then something strange happened. As the candle melted down about an inch, the flame suddenly flared brighter, almost like it had hit something more flammable. The white wax was pooling normally, but there was something else, a glint of something that wasn't wax, something metallic. I leaned closer, my heart beginning to race. The flame was reflecting off something inside the candle, something that shouldn't be there. I blew out the flame and grabbed a knife from the drawer, carefully scraping away the soft, melted wax. And there it was, a core of solid gold, about as thick as my thumb, running through the center of the candle. I stood there, knife in hand, staring at what had to be a hallucination. But when I touched it, it was real. Cold and hard and unmistakably gold. Real gold. With shaking hands, I grabbed another candle, the one labeled hidden, and cut into it with the knife, slicing it lengthwise like I was filleting a fish. The white wax fell away, revealing another golden core. This one had something else, tiny numbers etched into the gold, account numbers. I called Marcy, barely able to form words. "Come home," I gasped into the phone. "Come home right now." "Sophie, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "The candles. Marcy, the candles. They're not just candles." "What do you mean?" "Just come home, please." She must have heard something in my voice because she said she'd tell her supervisor she had a family emergency. 20 minutes later, she burst through her apartment door to find me surrounded by carved-up candles and 24 gold cores laid out on her coffee table like bars of bullion. "Holy—" She stopped, staring. "Sophie, is that gold? Real gold. Each candle has a gold core. And look," I showed her the ones I'd examined more closely. Some have account numbers, some have GPS coordinates, some have what looks like safety deposit box numbers. Dad hid everything inside these candles. Marcy picked up one of the gold bars, testing its weight. "This has to be worth... At today's prices, each one of these is probably worth around $40,000, maybe more." 24 bars. Marcy's eyes widened as she did the math. "Sophie, that's almost $1 million, but why hide it like this?" I thought about Helena's grabby hands, her materialistic nature, the way she'd systematically isolated my father from his old life. Because he knew Helena would take everything she could see, but she'd never look twice at cheap candles. She'd never keep them, never value them. But he knew you would. The stipulation in the will, I can't sell, trade, or give them away for 1 year. He wanted to make sure I kept them long enough to discover what they really were. He knew I'd eventually use them, probably when I was alone and sad and needed light. Marcy sat down hard on her couch. "Your dad was a genius, a sneaky, wonderful genius. But the gold bars were just the beginning. As I examined each one more carefully, I began to understand the full scope of what my father had done. The account numbers led to offshore accounts he'd set up years ago, all in my name, waiting to be claimed. The GPS coordinates led to 5 different locations. One was his old workshop, which Helena had sold, but which, according to the property records I found online, had a reverter clause that would return it to me on my 25th birthday. Another was a storage unit across town. "We have to go to the storage unit," I said, grabbing my keys. "Now?" "Now." The storage facility was one of those climate-controlled places that looked like it could survive a nuclear war. Unit 447 was on the 4th floor, and when I opened it with the key code etched into one of the gold bars, I actually gasped. The unit was filled with everything Helena had thrown away or sold: my father's tools, his coffee mug, photo albums of my mother, her jewelry that Helena had claimed was lost, and in the back a filing cabinet with folders labeled with my name. Inside were documents that made my hands shake. Proof that Helena had been embezzling from my father's company for years. Bank statements showing mysterious transfers. Emails between Helena and a lawyer discussing how to minimize my inheritance. And a letter from my father to me, dated the day before his death. "My dearest Sophie," I read aloud to Marcy, tears streaming down my face. "If you're reading this, then you found my true legacy to you. I'm sorry for the deception, but I knew Helena would contest any traditional inheritance I left you. She's been stealing from me for years, but I could never prove it in a way that wouldn't destroy the facade of our family. I couldn't bear to put you through a messy divorce and legal battle while you were still in school. But I could protect what was yours. Your mother left you more than you know, not just her love, but a substantial life insurance policy that I've been investing for 16 years. It's all here, hidden where only someone who truly knew me would look. The candles were our last project together, remember? Before Helena came, you helped me pour them in the workshop, just 5 years old and so proud to be helping Daddy. I kept them all these years, waiting for the right moment. The gold is just the beginning. The accounts contain your mother's life insurance, grown with careful investment. The workshop will revert to you. Check the deed carefully. There's a clause Helena's lawyer missed. The storage unit has everything that matters, everything Helena tried to erase. But more importantly, I've left you the truth. The evidence in this filing cabinet is enough to destroy Helena if she ever tries to hurt you again. Use it wisely. You were never the forgotten daughter, Sophie. You were the protected one, the loved one, the one I trusted with everything that mattered. Remember what I taught you. Value isn't always visible. Sometimes the most precious things are hidden inside what others dismiss as worthless. You are not worthless. You never were. You are gold, my darling daughter, pure gold wrapped in humility and grace. All my love, forever and always, Dad. P.S. Check the workshop floor, southeast corner, under the loose board. Your mother left something for you there for when you turned 25. I never told Helena about it. I stood there in that storage unit, holding the letter, sobbing so hard I could barely breathe. Marcy held me as I cried. For my father, for my mother, for all the years I'd believed I was unloved and unwanted. "We have to go to the workshop," Marcy said when I'd finally calmed down. "Helena sold it. It's probably been converted into condos or something." "Let's check anyway." The workshop was in an industrial part of town, a small building my father had bought when he started his construction company. When we pulled up, I was shocked to see it looked exactly the same, weathered sign and all. There was a for lease sign in the window with Helena's realtor friend's number on it. I called the number on the GPS gold bar instead. It connected to a lawyer's office. "Patterson and Associates," a familiar voice answered, the same lawyer who'd read the will. "This is Sophie Martinez," I said. "I'm at my father's workshop." "Miss Martinez, I've been waiting for your call. According to my records, you've discovered the contents of the candles? How did you—" "Your father was very thorough. If you're at the workshop, you should know that the sale Helena authorized was invalid. The property is held in a trust that requires both your signature and hers to sell, and you never signed. She's been collecting rent on it illegally for 6 months. The tenants were evicted last week when we informed them of the situation. You're free to enter. It's your property." My property. The words felt surreal. The spare key was still hidden where Dad always kept it, inside a fake rock by the back door. The workshop smelled exactly as I remembered, sawdust and motor oil and possibility. Helena's realtor had cleared out most of the equipment, but the bones of the space remained. I went to the southeast corner, found the loose floorboard Dad had mentioned. Underneath was a metal box, and inside that was another letter, this one in my mother's handwriting, along with a small velvet pouch. "My darling Sophie," my mother's letter began. "Your father promised to give this to you on your 25th birthday, or when you needed it most. By now you're a woman, and I can only imagine how beautiful and strong you've become. I wish I could see you, but know that I'm watching from wherever I am, and I'm so proud of you. Inside this pouch is my grandmother's ring, the one that should have been yours on your wedding day. But more than that, it's a reminder that you come from a long line of strong women who survived impossible things. My grandmother fled Spain during the Civil War with nothing but this ring sewn into her coat. She built a new life from nothing. You have her strength in your bones, my darling. Never let anyone make you feel less than you are. If you're reading this, it means your father kept his promise to protect you, even if it didn't always feel like protection. Trust him, my love. He loves you more than you can imagine. All my love, forever and always, Mom." The ring was stunning, an antique rose gold band with a constellation of small diamonds surrounding a deep blue sapphire. It fit perfectly on my right hand, as if it had been waiting for me all along. "Sophie," Marcy said quietly, "you need to see this." She was standing by what used to be Dad's workbench, holding another folder. This one was labeled Company Shares. Inside were documents showing that my father had transferred 49% of his construction company to me on my 18th birthday, held in a trust I hadn't known existed. Helena owned 51%, or so she thought. But there was a clause. If she was ever found guilty of embezzlement or fraud against the company, her shares would automatically transfer to me. "You own the company," Marcy said, reading through the legal documents. "If you can prove Helena was embezzling, I have all the proof right here," I said, holding up the files from the storage unit. "Bank statements, forged signatures, everything. What are you going to do?" I thought about it for a long moment. Helena had made my life miserable for 12 years. She'd isolated my father, spent his money, tried to erase my mother's memory. She'd made me feel worthless, unwanted, unloved. The smart thing would be to call the police right now, have her arrested, take everything back. But my father had waited. He'd been strategic, patient, careful. "I'm going to wait," I said finally. "I'm going to do exactly what Dad did. Be smart about it." "What do you mean?" "Helena doesn't know about any of this. She thinks she won. She thinks I'm nobody, with nothing but a box of cheap candles. Let her keep thinking that for now. I need to get all my ducks in a row first. Talk to lawyers, accountants, make sure everything is airtight. And then I'm going to take back everything she stole, and she won't even see it coming." We spent the next 3 hours in the workshop, going through everything, taking photos of documents, making lists of what needed to be done. By the time we left, the sun was setting, painting the sky the same orange-pink as the sunset Dad and I used to watch from the workshop roof. That night, I went back to the house. I couldn't bring myself to call it home anymore. Helena and Brittany were in the living room, Helena on her second bottle of wine. Brittany painting her nails and talking about her plans to spend a month in Aspen. "Oh, Sophie," Helena said, her voice already slurred. "I didn't expect you back. I thought you'd be too embarrassed to show your face after that pathetic inheritance." "I just came to get some things," I said evenly. "Well, hurry up. I'm having the locks changed tomorrow. You have 30 days to find a new place to live. That's the law, you know. 30 days notice for tenants." "Tenants?" I kept my voice calm, even as rage boiled in my chest. "This is my father's house." "Was," Helena corrected, waving her wine glass. "Was your father's house. It's mine now. And I don't think it's appropriate for a grown woman to be living with her family rent-free, do you?" Brittany snickered. "Maybe you can sell those candles on eBay. Might get you enough for a security deposit on a studio apartment in a bad neighborhood." "Maybe," I said, heading up to my attic room. "You never know what things are really worth." I packed methodically, taking everything that mattered. Photos of my parents, my diploma, my mother's few remaining possessions that I'd managed to hide from Helena. As I packed, I could hear them laughing downstairs, planning renovations with my father's money. The next morning, I met with Mr. Patterson, the lawyer. When I showed him what I'd found, his eyes widened. "Miss Martinez, this is extensive. Your father was remarkably thorough. The embezzlement alone is enough for criminal charges, and these forged signatures on the company documents, Helena could be looking at serious jail time." "I don't want to rush into anything," I said. "I want to make sure we do this right." "Very wise. May I suggest we start by freezing the accounts she's been stealing from? We can do that quietly without alerting her. Then we can build the case properly." "How long will that take?" "To do it right? 6 to 8 weeks? Maybe less if she makes a mistake." "She'll make a mistake," I said with certainty. "Helena always does when she thinks she's won." And I was right. 3 weeks later, Helena made her first error. She tried to sell the workshop building, not realizing the sale she'd made 6 months ago was invalid. When the potential buyer's lawyer did a title search, they found the trust documents. Helena called Mr. Patterson in a rage, demanding to know why he hadn't told her about the trust. "Because you never asked," he said simply, "and Miss Martinez never signed off on any sale." Helena then tried to liquidate some of my father's investment accounts, only to find them frozen. The bank informed her there was an ongoing investigation into suspicious transfers. She couldn't touch a penny. That's when she called me. "What did you do?" she screamed into the phone. "I was at Marcy's apartment, eating takeout and reviewing the forensic accountant's report on Helena's theft. $2.3 million over 7 years. She'd been bleeding my father dry." "I didn't do anything," I said calmly. "Is there a problem?" "You know there's a problem. The accounts are frozen. The workshop sale is void. What did you do?" "Helena, I'm just a girl with a box of cheap candles, remember? What could I possibly do?" She hung up on me. The next day she tried to enter the storage unit, having found a receipt for it in my father's old papers. But the access code had been changed, and when she tried to convince the manager to let her in, claiming to be my father's widow, he called the police. Turns out attempting to break into someone else's storage unit is a crime, but the real mistake, the one that sealed her fate, came a week later. Helena decided to throw a party, a celebration, she called it, of her new beginning. She invited all her country club friends, hired caterers, decorated the house with flowers that cost more than most people's rent. She wanted to show off her newfound wealth, to cement her position as a wealthy widow. I knew about the party because Brittany posted about it constantly on Instagram. "Mom's throwing the party of the year. Check your blessed, check your new beginnings. You living my best life." What Helena didn't know was that I'd been invited to that party too, not by her, of course, but by Mrs. Patterson, the lawyer's wife, who was a member of the same country club and had always been kind to me. "You should come, dear," Mrs. Patterson had said when she called. "It might be educational." So I went. Not through the front door, of course. Helena would have had me thrown out, but Mrs. Patterson met me at the back gate, the one that led to the garden, and let me in. I wore my mother's black dress, the one I'd found in the storage unit, and her grandmother's ring. I looked like I belonged there, like I wasn't the girl Helena had tried to erase. The party was in full swing when I arrived. Helena was holding court in the living room, regaling her guests with stories of her plans for the house, the company, her future. Brittany was showing off a new diamond necklace Helena had bought her before the accounts were frozen. I waited in the garden, hidden behind the rose bushes my mother had planted 20 years ago, until Mr. Patterson gave me the signal. Then I walked in through the French doors, just as Helena was making a toast. "To new beginnings," Helena was saying, raising her champagne glass. "To leaving the past behind and embracing a future of embezzlement," I said, stepping into the room. The room went silent. Helena's face went from red to white in seconds. "Sophie, what are you doing here? You weren't invited. Leave immediately or I'll call the police." "Oh, please do call them," I said, walking further into the room. "I'm sure they'd be very interested in talking to you. In fact," I checked my phone, "they should be here any minute." "What are you talking about?" Helena's voice was shrill now, panicked. "Well, Helena, since you're so interested in new beginnings, I thought we should start with some endings. Like the ending of your 7-year embezzlement scheme, $2.3 million stolen from my father's company. It's all documented. Every transfer, every forged signature, every fraudulent invoice." The room gasped collectively. Several people stepped away from Helena, as if crime might be contagious. "You're lying," Helena said, but her hand was shaking, champagne sloshing onto her designer dress. "Am I?" I pulled out my phone, showing the forensic accountant's report. "Mr. Patterson, would you like to explain?" Mr. Patterson stepped forward, all business. "The evidence is comprehensive and has already been turned over to the district attorney. Mrs. Blackwood, you're facing multiple felony charges." "But more interesting than that," I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "is what happens to your shares in the company when you're convicted of embezzlement. Oh, didn't you read the fine print in the shareholder agreement? If any shareholder is convicted of a crime against the company, their shares automatically transfer to the other shareholders, which means—" "No," Helena whispered, "which means I'll own 100% of my father's company. The house, which is held by the company as an asset, will also revert to me. The vacation property in Aspen? Also a company asset. Even your Mercedes, Helena. It's registered to the company." Brittany dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the hardwood floor my father had installed himself. "But here's the thing," I said, addressing the room now. "I'm not cruel. I'm not going to throw Brittany out on the street, even though that's exactly what you tried to do to me. She can stay in the pool house for 30 days while she finds a new place. That's the law, after all. 30 days notice for tenants." "You little—" Helena lunged at me, but 2 police officers chose that moment to walk in. "Helena Blackwood," one of them said, "you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and forgery. You have the right to remain silent." As they led her away in handcuffs, in front of all her country club friends, Helena turned to look at me one last time. "Those candles," she said. "What was in those candles?" I smiled, my father's smile, the one that knew secrets. "Value, Helena, something you never understood. They contained value." The party dispersed quickly after that. Nobody wanted to be associated with Helena now that she was heading to jail. Brittany stood in the ruins of her mother's party, mascara running down her cheeks. "Where am I supposed to go?" she wailed. "You have a degree from a good college," I said, not unkindly. "You have job experience from all those internships your mother bought you. You have 30 days to figure it out. That's more than you ever gave me. But I don't know how to. I've never had to. Then I guess you'll learn. We all have to grow up sometime, Brittany." I left her there and walked through my father's house, my house now, touching the walls, the furniture, remembering when this was a home filled with love instead of a battlefield. In the kitchen, I found my father's coffee mug, the one Helena had hidden instead of throwing away. She'd been using it to hold spare change, of all things. I washed it carefully, filled it with coffee from the machine that still remembered how my father liked it. Strong, no sugar, a splash of cream. I took it out to the back porch, where Dad and I used to watch the sunrise before Helena woke up, before the day turned complicated. "I found them, Dad," I said to the empty garden. "I found all of it. The gold, the accounts, the truth. You protected me, even when I couldn't see it, even when it hurt. You made sure I'd be okay." The wind chimed through the trees, and for a moment, I could swear I smelled sawdust and Old Spice. Over the next 6 months, everything changed. Helena was convicted on all charges and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole in 3. She had to pay restitution, which wiped out the cash inheritance she'd received. Brittany moved back in with her biological father in another state, posting increasingly desperate Instagram stories about having to work retail. I moved back into my parents' house, but this time it felt like home again. I converted Helena's gaudy office back into my father's study, complete with his engineering books and family photos. I reopened his workshop, not to run the construction company. I hired good people for that, but as a community maker space where kids could learn woodworking and crafts, where they could build things with their hands and feel proud of what they created. The gold from the candles, along with the investment accounts my father had hidden, totaled nearly $3 million. But the money wasn't the real inheritance. The real inheritance was the lesson. That value isn't always visible, that patience beats impulse, that sometimes the best revenge is simply revealing the truth. I kept one candle unmelted, the one labeled forever. It sits on my mantle now, a reminder that some things are worth preserving exactly as they are. A reminder that my father's love was hidden, not absent, protected, not forgotten. Last week, I got a letter from Helena in prison. She wanted to apologize, she said. She wanted to make amends. She wanted to know if I could find it in my heart to forgive her, maybe put some money in her commissary account. I thought about it for a long time. Then I sent her a package. Inside was a single white candle, just a regular candle from the dollar store. Nothing special about it at all. The note I included said simply, "Sometimes things are exactly what they appear to be. And sometimes, Helena, that's all you deserve. But I'm not bitter. How could I be? I learned the most valuable lesson of my life from those 24 candles, that love sometimes hides itself to stay safe, that protection doesn't always look like shelter, and that the most precious gifts often come wrapped in the plainest packages. I think about my father every day, not with sadness anymore, but with gratitude. He knew Helena would try to take everything. He knew she would dismiss anything that looked worthless. So he hid my inheritance in plain sight, in the last thing she would ever value. Simple white candles that held golden cores. Just like me, I suppose. The girl Helena dismissed as worthless, who turned out to have gold at her core all along. The workshop is busy these days. Kids come after school to learn what I learned, that you can build something from nothing, that your hands can create beauty, that patience and skill matter more than flashy talent. Last week, a little girl named Maria made a jewelry box for her mother, painted it bright purple with "World's Best Mom" in crooked letters across the top. "Is it good?" she asked me, worried about the imperfect lettering. "It's perfect," I told her, remembering my own crooked letters on a coffee mug 20 years ago. The best gifts aren't perfect, they're made with love, and love is always valuable, even when you can't see it right away. She beamed and ran off to show her mother, who cried when she saw it. I understood those tears. They were the same ones I cry sometimes when I use my father's coffee mug, when I wear my mother's ring, when I light the forever candle on their anniversary just to see the flame dance. Mr. Patterson told me last week that Helena's lawyer wants to negotiate. Apparently, prison doesn't suit her. She's willing to give up any claim to anything if I'll just drop the restitution requirements. She wants to start fresh when she gets out, she says. She wants a new beginning. I told him no. Not because I'm vindictive, but because actions have consequences. She stole from my father for 7 years. She tried to erase my mother's memory. She made a child feel worthless in her own home. Those aren't mistakes you get to walk away from just because orange isn't your color. But I did do one thing for her. I put money in Brittany's account. Not a fortune, but enough for her to go back to school if she wants, to build something real instead of the fantasy Helena constructed. Brittany hasn't thanked me, probably never will, but that's okay. The gift isn't for her to thank me. It's for me to honor my father, who believed in second chances, even for people who didn't deserve them. The house is quiet now, but it's a good quiet. A peaceful quiet. Not the tense silence of Helena's reign, where every footstep might trigger a criticism, every laugh might be too loud. Now it's filled with the ghosts of good memories. My mother singing in the kitchen, my father building dollhouses in the workshop, family dinners where everyone actually wanted to be there. Sometimes I walk through the rooms and imagine what my life would have been like if my mother hadn't died, if Helena had never entered our lives. But then I realized that this journey, painful as it was, taught me something valuable. It taught me that I could survive being unseen, unvalued, unloved by the people who were supposed to care for me. It taught me that my worth didn't come from their validation, but from something deeper, something that couldn't be taken away. And it taught me about love, the kind that protects even when it can't be present, the kind that plans for futures it won't see, the kind that hides treasures in plain sight for the day when they're needed most. I'm 23 years old. I own a successful construction company. I have more money than I'll ever need. But the richest thing I possess is the knowledge that I was loved, deeply and truly, by parents who saw my value, even when I couldn't see it myself. The candles are almost all gone now, melted down for their gold, their secrets revealed. But I keep the empty shells, the white wax casings that held so much value. They're in a box in my father's workshop, labeled in my handwriting. Remember. Because that's what inheritance really is, isn't it? Not money or property or things, but memories and lessons and love that transcends death. My father left me gold hidden in candles. But more than that, he left me the knowledge that I was worth protecting, worth planning for, worth everything he had to give. Last night, I had dinner with Marcy in the house. We cooked my mother's enchilada recipe, the one I found handwritten in the storage unit, stained with sauce and thyme. As we ate, Marcy raised her glass of wine. "To your dad," she said, "the man who played the longest game and won." "To my dad," I agreed, raising my own glass, "who taught me that sometimes the best things come in the plainest packages." "Speaking of which," Marcy said, grinning, "I have something for you." She pulled out a small wrapped box, clearly wrapped by her own hands. The tape was crooked, the paper slightly wrinkled. "What's this for?" "For surviving, for thriving, for becoming who you were always meant to be. Open it." Inside was a candle, hand-poured by the look of it, white like my father's, but with flecks of gold throughout the wax. "I made it at that craft place downtown," Marcy said, suddenly shy. "I thought, well, you needed a new candle, one that doesn't hide its gold, one that lets it shine through." I lit it right there at the dinner table, watching the gold flecks shimmer in the light. The flame danced, casting shadows and light across the room where Helena had once held court, where my father had once sat silent, where my mother had once laughed. "You know what I realized?" I said, watching the candle burn. "Helena spent so much time and energy trying to take everything from my father, from me. She thought wealth was about accumulation, about having more than everyone else. But real wealth is about love. It's about the people who see your value when the rest of the world doesn't. It's about parents who protect you even from beyond the grave. It's about friends who stand by you when you have nothing but a box of candles." "Don't make me cry," Marcy said, but she was already wiping her eyes. "We're supposed to be celebrating." "We are celebrating. We're celebrating the fact that Helena thought she won, but she never understood the game. She saw the surface, the cash, the property, the material things. She never saw what was hidden underneath. The love, the planning, the protection. She got exactly what she could see. Money that's now gone, a house she'll never live in again, a life built on lies that crumbled the moment truth was revealed. And you? I got everything that mattered, everything that was real, everything that was mine all along, just waiting for me to discover it." We sat there until the candle burned low, talking about the future, about the workshop, about the kids who were learning to build things with their hands. One of them, a boy named Marcus, whose father had died last year, had started coming every day after school. He reminded me of myself at that age, quiet, watchful, careful with his trust. Yesterday, he made his first complete project, a wooden picture frame for his mother. When he finished it, he looked at me with such pride, such accomplishment. "My dad would have liked this," he said quietly. "I think he would have loved it," I told him. "And you know what? The things we make with our own hands, the things we create with love, those last forever. Even after we're gone, they tell our story." He nodded, understanding in the way that children who've lost parents understand things, deeply, silently, permanently. As he left with his frame, his mother stopped me. "Thank you," she said. "He hasn't smiled like that since his father died. This place, what you're doing here, it's giving him something to hold on to." "Everyone needs something to hold on to," I said, thinking of 24 candles in a dusty box. Sometimes we just need help finding it. That's why I'm telling this story, not for sympathy or praise, but because I know there are others out there like me. People who've been dismissed, overlooked, told they're worth less than others. People whose inheritance seems like nothing while watching others get everything. I want you to know something. Your value isn't determined by what others can see. It's not measured in obvious gifts or public recognition. Sometimes the greatest treasures come disguised as the smallest gifts. Sometimes protection looks like abandonment. Sometimes love hides itself to stay safe until the right moment. My father knew Helena would take everything she could see, so he made my inheritance invisible to her. He wrapped gold in cheap wax, hid accounts in numbers, tucked truth into storage units. He made sure that only someone who truly knew him, who understood value beyond appearance, would find what he'd left behind. But more than the gold, more than the money, he left me the truth about myself, that I was worth protecting, worth planning for, worth the elaborate deception he'd orchestrated. Every night for months, maybe years, he must have carefully inserted those gold bars into candle molds, written those tiny words on the bottom, planned every detail of how to protect my inheritance from the woman he'd married. That's love. Complicated, hidden, strategic love, but love nonetheless. I think about Helena sometimes, sitting in her cell, wondering how she missed it. How did she not notice the weight of those candles? How did she not question why my father would leave me something so seemingly worthless? But that's the thing about people who only see surface value. They can't imagine depth. They can't conceive of hidden worth. To Helena, a cheap candle could only ever be a cheap candle. She called me last week from prison. I don't know why I answered, but I did. "Are you happy now?" she asked, her voice bitter. "You've taken everything from me." "No, Helena," I said. "I took back what was mine. There's a difference. Your father tricked me. My father protected me. From you." There was a long silence. Then she said, "Those candles, there was really gold in all of them?" "In every single one. I held that box. I laughed at it. I could have, but you didn't, because you couldn't see past the surface. You never could." She hung up then, and I knew she finally understood. Not just about the candles, but about everything. About why my father stayed with her, but kept his distance. About why he seemed resigned, but was actually planning. About why the quiet daughter got candles while the loud wife got cash. Cash can be spent, stolen, wasted. But a lesson? A carefully planned revelation? A truth that unfolds slowly, perfectly, inevitably? That's priceless. The workshop is quiet now. It's late, and I'm the last one here, sitting at my father's old workbench, writing this story on his old laptop that I found in the storage unit. Tomorrow, kids will fill this space again with sawdust and laughter. Marcus will work on his second project, a jewelry box for his grandmother. Maria will paint another crooked sign. New children will discover they can create beauty with their own hands. And I'll be here, teaching what my father taught me. That value isn't always visible, that patience beats haste, that love sometimes hides to protect itself, and that the most ordinary things can hold the most extraordinary secrets. If If you're reading this, if you've made it this far into my story, maybe you're like I was. Maybe you're holding your own box of candles, wondering why you got so little while others got so much. Maybe you're sitting in your attic room, feeling forgotten, overlooked, undervalued. I want you to know something. Look closer, look deeper, look past the surface. Your candles might not have gold in them. Your inheritance might not be money. But somewhere, somehow, someone who loved you left you something. Maybe it's a skill they taught you when no one was watching. Maybe it's a strength you developed because you had to. Maybe it's a truth you haven't discovered yet, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. My father used to say that the best things in life aren't things at all. I didn't understand that when I was young. I thought it was just something parents said when they couldn't afford to buy you what you wanted. But now I know he was right. The best things are the lessons that shape us, the love that protects us even when we can't see it, the truth that sets us free when we're ready to receive it. The best things are hidden in plain sight, wrapped in ordinary packages, waiting for us to discover their value. 24 candles. That's what my father left me. 24 chances to discover that I was never forgotten, never worthless, never unloved. 24 reminders that value isn't always visible, but it's always there for those who know how to look. So look. Look closer at your own life, your own story, your own inheritance. What seems worthless might be priceless. What seems like abandonment might be protection. What seems like nothing might be everything. And if you're the one leaving the inheritance, if you're the parent or grandparent or friend trying to protect someone you love, remember this. Sometimes the best gifts are the ones that wait. Sometimes love means hiding the treasure until the seeker is ready to find it. Sometimes protection looks like patience, and patience looks like absence. But underneath it all is love. Always love, forever love. The candle on my mantle, the one marked forever, remains unburned. I'll never melt it down, never extract its gold. Some things are worth more intact, worth more as symbols than as currency. That candle represents my father's love, my mother's legacy, my own journey from dismissed daughter to discovered heir. When I die, hopefully many, many years from now, I'll leave that candle to someone who needs it, someone who needs to remember that they are gold wrapped in ordinary wax, someone who needs to know that value isn't always visible, but it's always there. Maybe I'll hide it in an attic somewhere, in a dusty box marked, "Old candles, do not throw away." Maybe whoever finds it will think it's junk at first, but maybe, just maybe, they'll light it one sad night when they need light, and they'll see the gold gleaming through the melting wax, and they'll understand what I understood that day in Marcy's kitchen. We are all more valuable than we appear. That's my story. The story of a girl who got candles while everyone else got cash, and discovered she'd received the greatest inheritance of all. Not just gold, not just money, but proof. Undeniable, beautiful proof that she was loved, protected, and valued all along. Thank you for listening to my story. If this story moved you, and if you believe that everyone deserves to have their true worth seen, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Comment below and tell me, what was the moment in the story that resonated with you the most? And if you want more powerful stories about finding your strength and overcoming the odds, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's next.